Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to talk about how to play the Pokemon TCG game. Now, I know a lot of you guys that are already here, already been watching my channel. You are probably all pro players. Y'all have probably been playing for a long time. But this is for the people that are wanting to get into it. Maybe they're collectors. Maybe they, open a lot of packs. Maybe they just enjoy watching gameplay, but they've never actually played themselves. Well, this video is for them. It's kind of a beginner. It is a beginner deal, just to know the first steps, what to do when you're facing your opponent, that sort of thing, to know the rules. So first, starting off, you want to shuffle your deck. Always shuffle. Give it a nice good shuffle 2 or 3 times. Do some riffles, do some mash, all that good stuff. Make sure it's good and shuffled. This is when the game is, when you're about to start the round. And then before you ever draw any cards or do anything, pick up a dice, unless your opponent has first, and say, you flip for, to see who goes first. Evens, evens is heads, tails is odds. So you roll, what do you call? Well, I called heads. Well, evens is heads, so I get to choose, do I want to go first, do I want to go second? Well, I want to go first. You nearly always want to go first. In 90% of the decks, and I'd say 99% of the decks out there, it is better to go first. Always go first. It gives you that extra turn to set up, gives you that extra turn to get your cards out, dig through your deck. It's just it is a big advantage. So always go first. Now, you don't get to attack on your first turn, and the second player can attack, but that is just the way of the second player kind of trying to nullify that advantage of not getting the setup turn. But anyway, guys, roll. See who goes first. That is always the first thing you do. Ask your opponent, hey, heads or tails? He says tails. You roll. It is a tails. He gets to choose. Say he says you get to go first. Or he gets to go first and you just have to sit there and wait on him. But the first thing you do, shuffle your deck if you haven't already done it, and then offer it to your opponent. Cut or tap. Do you want to cut this? Do you want to tap it? And normally he'll just cut it like this and slide it over the side, or leave it there, and then you're free to do whatever. Now, starting off, you're starting the game. You have to set up, before you actually get started. So you count out 7 cards. That is your opening hand. Your opening hand always starts with 7 cards. You scoop those up and you look at them. And the goal here is to find a basic Pokemon to put into the active position. There are no basic Pokemons in my hand, which is great because I was going to have to synthesize it otherwise. But there are no basic Pokemon in my hand, and that is called a mulligan. And what you do, you show your opponent your cards, say, hey, I'm mulliganed. Here's my cards. He'll look at them or he'll just wave them away. He doesn't, depending on if he knows your deck or not. And you put them back on top of your deck. Then your opponent will take a die, usually a small one like this, could be a big one, doesn't really matter. And he will place it on top of his deck like that, with showing that you have taken 1 mulligan. Then you shuffle your deck up real good. Give it a few good shuffles. Till you think they're good and randomize. The cards you just put back in there are sufficiently shuffled in, and you hand it to your opponent. And he will again, you say cut or tap. And if he taps, then you just slide it to the side. All's good. If he cuts it, then he cuts it. It ain't no big deal. That's part of the game. And then you count out 7 more cards. 4, 5, 6, 7. And look at them. And you find your basic Pokemon. Now I only have 1 basic Pokemon in my hand. It's a really bad starting Pokemon, but that is the way it works sometimes. Well, I have a Dedenne, so you place it like this in the active position. Now that you have put a basic down, and you can lay down as many as you want. You can lay down 1 in the active. You have to have 1 in the active. Place the one you want in the active, and then you can place down 5 more if you want on the bench. I don't recommend doing that. The most I usually place down is 1 or 2 on the bench for my opening hand, if I have them in my hand at all. But just for beginner's sake, always place 1 down in the active and try and place 1 down on the bench. Once you've done that, then you reach over here to your deck, take the top few cards like this, and you count out 6 prize cards, just like this. And they don't have to be squared out like that. They can be, don't ever pick your prize cards back up once you've laid them down. But they can be put out, like this. They can be put out like this. It doesn't really matter how you lay them out, as long as you're laying out 6 prize cards. Typically, I lay mine out like this right here. That just makes it easy to grab to. And, you know, if you knock out a GX, you get to take 2 prizes. So that's the way it goes. So you shake hands with your opponent. Say, you know, good luck. I hope it's a good game. Now, back to this mulligan. I had 1 mulligan. That means my opponent, for every time that I have to shuffle my hand back into my deck because I do not have a basic Pokemon, he gets to take a mulligan. And what a mulligan is that means he gets to draw an extra card. So you start out with 7 cards in your hand. You lay one down in the active, so now you got 6. Well, he took a mulligan, so he got to draw an extra card and add it to his hand before the game even started. You know, and if you rack up if you have 5 mulligans, he gets to take 5 extra cards. It can be a big advantage to him. Anyway, you shake hands, you know, good game, and then you reach up here and you flip your starting card over. Now, since he went first, he goes through all of his stuff, blah, blah, blah. It's your turn. The very first thing you do on your turn is you draw a card. That is a requirement in this game. It is a requirement that you draw a card. If you cannot draw a card, say you're out of cards, you lose. You have to draw a card at the beginning of your turn to win this game. There is no other way to get around that. You have to draw a card. So you reach over here, you draw your card, and you see what you have in your hand. This hand is a terrible hand, but let's go through it. So first of all, you can only attach 1 energy per turn. 1 energy card, you can attach it to any Pokemon you want, unless otherwise stated on that Pokemon card itself or the energy card. You can attach it to any Pokemon you want, but you can only attach 1 per turn. Item cards, these trainer cards right here that say item, I don't know if you can see that, be blue up here in the top right corner. You can play as many item cards per turn as you want. It doesn't matter what they are. Fiery flints, field blowers, switches, escape ropes, rescue stretchers, energy switches, it doesn't matter. You can play as many item cards from your hand or from wherever. You can play as many item cards as you want to. So let's say he played a bunch of choice bands. He played down like 3 or 4 choice bands, whatever, you know, just something crazy. Maybe he has a stadium in play that you don't want to play. So you play the field blower. There's 1 item, taking away his tools. So there's 1 item. Play a fiery flint that discards 2 cards from your hand, and then search your deck for 4 cards, or 4 fire energies, I'm sorry. So you can play as many item cards from your hand. There is no penalty to that. That is the way it is. As many as you want. Alright. Now, we've already established that you can attach per turn, only once per turn. Now, there are exceptions to the rule, and that is with a card like Welder. And Welder states that you can attach 2 fire energy cards from your hand to one of your Pokemon. If you do, draw 3 cards. So, this is a supporter card. I don't know if you can see that right there, but that is red, and that says supporter. You can only play 1 supporter card per turn, unless you have a card that states otherwise. There is a card out there called Lieutenant Surge's Strategy. It's a pretty good card. It doesn't go into every deck, but it states that besides this supporter card, you can play 2 more. So you get to play Lieutenant Surge's Strategy and then play 2 more supporter cards after that. But general rule, you can only play 1 supporter card per turn. So we play the Welder, and then we attach the 2 fire energies to the only Pokemon we have on the bench or in play, even though it's not going to be able to use those. And then we follow out the rules of the card. So you play the card, do the effect, and then you search for the 3 cards. There are also cards such as Ingo and Emmett. And let's see here. Guzma. Should be a Red's Challenge. These cards right here, these are also supporter cards. You can only play 1 of those per turn. So let's just assume we didn't play the Welder and we want to play the Ingo and Emmett. So what you do is you play it. You can only play 1 of them, and then it says, look at the top card of your deck, choose 1, discard your hand and draw 5 cards, or discard your hand and draw 5 cards from the bottom of your deck, which is what I would do in this case because that top draw was not that good. Not bad. But anyway, you can only play 1 supporter card per turn. So now that we've played our supporters, we know we can only play 1. We know we can only play, or we know we can play as many item cards as we want to. 1 supporter, 1 item. You can only attach 1 energy per turn. And there is one more thing that you can only do per turn, and that is hard retreat. Manual retreat is what I call it hard retreat. A lot of people call it manual retreat. And if you look here at the bottom of your Pokemon, on the far right bottom, there will be a little silver slot that says retreat. And what that means is you have to pay the energy cost to retreat it. It'll always be colorless. All Pokemon's retreat cost is colorless. Up until this point anyway. Future sets it may not be. But it's all colorless. So this says you play one colorless to retreat. Now I will play with one colorless and I will retreat it. Now because I do not have a Pokemon on the bench, that means I cannot retreat. Because you have to have something in the active. So what I'll do here is I'll lay down the Ho-Oh GX, and then I will hard retreat my Dedenne, discarding one fire energy, satisfying this colorless retreat cost, and putting the Ho-Oh in the active position. You can only do that once per turn, unless you were playing an item card, such as an escape rope or a switch, like this one right here. You can play this. This says switch your active Pokemon with one of your benched Pokemon. So you can only hard retreat once, but you can play as many item switch cards as you want to just continue retreating over and over and over until you're satisfied. Next thing, you can only attack once per game. So let's say the Ho-Oh's in the active. He's got a fire energy, 3 fire energies attached to him. That means you have satisfied his energy cost for the Sacred Fire, which does 50 damage to any one Pokemon anywhere on the field. 1 fire, 2 colorless. You get to attack once. But remember, at the end of your turn, or at the end of if you attack, that is the end of your turn. So you save attacking till the very last. So you do not want to announce this attack till the very end. So let's say you announced it and you knocked out a Ditto Prism Star on the bench. What does that mean? You knocked it out, you KO'd it. That means you get to take one prize card. That means you reach over here, grab one of these cards, pick it up, and put it into your hand. Now, I always suggest taking the prize cards from the bottom. It doesn't matter if it's left or right. But if you start choosing and picking which ones you want to take, people get suspicious. You know, maybe you know what's in there. Maybe you know where the energies are, or where the supporter is, or where the item card is that you're looking for. You know where it's at in the deck. Now that, or in the prize cards. And that's not a bad deal if you have played a Gladion, but you know, Gladions they're not really played that much. Next, let's get into the GX move. So you have a GX move. All Pokemon GX, tag teams or not tag teams, have a GX move down here at the bottom. Here's another one right here. GX moves can only be used once per turn. And that's what this little marker is right here. So this is Eternal Flame GX. It allows me to search my discard, put like 2, I think, 3 in any combination of Pokemon onto my bench. Fire Pokemon. So what I would do is I would reach up here, I'd say I'm going to announce Eternal Flame GX, getting my Pokemon out, and then I would flip over this GX marker. And that is just to signify that you have used your GX attack for that turn. This is a good way to keep track of it. It doesn't have to be one of these. It could be a card with GX written on it. It could be pretty much anything as long as you have a marker. Next up, we have damage counters. Now, if you buy the starter pack, or not the starter pack, the trainer kits, what are they called? The little boxes you can buy that's got like beginner decks in them. They'll come with little cardboard round things that'll say 10 on them. Well, we don't use those because they're a pain in the neck and they're hard to pick up, and then you have to count a whole bunch of them out, and it's a real pain in the neck. And we use dice, and we have one that signifies as 10 damage. So if someone did 120 damage to me, you would just turn over here to a 6. There's 60 damage. There's 60 more damage. That's 120 in total. So it's a real easy way to keep track of it. I suggest you go and pick up an Elite Trainer box. It'll give you a cool set of these dice, along with a big dice and a burn counter and a GX marker. It'll give you all of that right there. Give you all of that. Give you the little dice, a big dice, burn, poison, and a tag team marker. So that is the basic way you play. And once you attack, you take your prize card. If you knock something out, it's your opponent's turn. He does whatever it is he's supposed to be doing. You know, he plays Pokemon. He plays energy cards. He does his supporter. There are some supporters that affect you, and if they do affect you, you have to follow that effect. Like a judge says, both players shuffle their hand into their deck and draw 4 cards. So you shuffle your hand in, draw 4 cards, no big deal. Maybe it disrupts you. Maybe it gets rid of some of the cards you're really looking for. But either way, you know, it is what it is. But that's pretty much it for the for the way the deck plays. I mean, not the deck, the game plays. It's very simple, very easy to use. Let's talk about burn and poison here real quick, since I have them out here. When you're burned, say your opponent attacks you, 120 damage, or yeah, 110 damage. I think I have one that does that. I think Reshiram does that. Yeah, here we go. Let's read that. Scorching Column, 110 damage. Your opponent's Pokemon is now burned. So let's say they attacked me with Reshirams. They do 110 damage. Let's get it right here. So there's, let's see, there's 50, and then 60. 50 and 60 is 110. So they got 110, and then you put the burn counter on. Now, burn takes effects in between turns. So it's his turn, he attacks, he does 110, and then it comes your turn, and right here, when it's turning to your turn, is when burn takes effect, and that adds 20 damage to you. So effectively making that attack 130 damage. And then it goes to your turn. Also, in between turns, you roll to see if that burn stays. So, burn, it goes away, I think, if you roll ahead. So, tails, it stays, and it's there for the next turn. You roll in between every turn. So, in between his turn to your turn, you roll. And in between your turn to his turn, you roll. So, you play all your cards. You do everything. You attack, whatever. Maybe you take another prize card because you knocked out something on the other fence or the other side of the board. And then you roll for that burn. Well, it's a tails again, so that adds 20 more damage to you. That's the way burn works. And that goes like that until you get rid of it. Until you finally roll out of it or your Pokemon is knocked out. The way poison works is he attacks you. Say he does 50 damage plus poison. So poison works the same way as burn, except for you don't get to roll for it. So poison adds 10 damage in between turns. So he does you for 50. And then in between turns, you tick up one poison counter. So you attack, you do everything, you play your one supporter, you play all your items, attach your energy for turn. Never forget to attach your energy for turn. I've done that and it completely ruins a game. Like, for you. Not for your opponent, because then they get up on you because they don't forget to attach the energy. But anyway, then it goes back to their turn. You don't get to flip, but you do have to add one damage counter to your Pokemon. So, burn and poison is okay. It's not the best. It's not a real good way, real reliable way of adding damage, but it is what it is. And next up, we have sleep. I think it's this way? Maybe that way. Honestly, I'm not 100% sure. But you have sleep, paralyze, and confusion. Sleep, I believe you turn it to the right if your Pokemon goes to sleep. If they attack you, maybe they use a Koga's Trap. No, Koga's Trap poisons and confuses. So if you go to sleep, it's to the right, and your Pokemon is now asleep. When you're asleep, you cannot manually retreat. You cannot attack. You cannot do anything. But in between turns, you roll. If heads, there, that one was heads. No, wait. There, that one was heads. Then your Pokemon wakes back up. Until you flip heads, or you play a switch, or you play a skateboard that allows you to retreat, whatever it is, you cannot, you can't do anything. You're asleep. Your Pokemon is asleep. He's not attacking. He's not moving. He's not doing anything. Now, to say that, you can use a switch and switch them out of the active while they are asleep, because you're not manually retreating. Confusion is left. Confusion means that if you go to attack, you have to roll a coin, or flip a coin, or roll a dice. If heads, I'm going to get rid of this. This is rolling tails every time. If heads, your attack goes through. I believe it's heads. It may be tails. If tails, your attack goes through, and you attack them. If it's heads, then your attack fails, and you have to add 3 damage counters to you. Just like in the video games, if you've ever played the video games, that's the way it is in that. If you're confused, you may not hit. If you do, you hurt yourself. Or if you don't, you hurt yourself. Same way in the TCG. If you attack, flip a coin. If tails, you get to attack. If not, then you hurt yourself for 30 damage. Could be really detrimental if that guy just needs 30 more damage to knock you out. Paralyzed, and when they're confused, you can retreat. You can retreat them manually, of course with item cards or whatever, but you can retreat them using energies. That's the biggest thing. When they're paralyzed, they are this way. And when they're paralyzed, they cannot do anything. It is worse than when they're asleep, because you don't even get to flip a coin to see if they come out of it. Well, no, they come out of it automatically, I guess, with paralyzed. But you can't do anything. You can get switches to get them out. You can use Guzma to get them out. there's a thing called a shock lock where they basically just keep you paralyzed the entire game. But paralysis, is that what you say that? Paralysis? Paralyzed. When you're paralyzed, you can't do anything. It's a pain in the neck, and I hate it. It doesn't run around a lot, so you don't really have to worry about that. And honestly, neither does burn and poison. Most of this doesn't run around, and when you do see something asleep, it will be because of Jirachi, and it puts itself to sleep, so you don't really have to worry about that. I don't know if y'all could hear that noise. That's my computer saying something. But anyways, that's pretty much it for the game. That's the way it plays. I mean, oh, something else, stadium cards. While I'm thinking about it, you can only play one stadium card per turn. So you have Heat Factory in your hand, you play it, maybe you've got a Viridian Force or something in your hand and you want to play it too. You can't because you've already played a Heat Factory. Now you can, next turn you can play it, or your opponent can play a stadium and bump it out of the way. And while we're here, let's talk about Prism Stars, since that reminded me. This is a new mechanic. You can only have one Prism Star card of any type in your deck, of any name in your deck. And when you do discard it, it goes to the discard zone. I mean, to the lost zone, not to the discard pile. Typically, that's the way they do it, just to signify that it's gone. You can't get it back. It's under that GX counter. It's gone. And but yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. That's super simple. The game is super simple to play, super easy. The biggest thing you need to remember is to put out your prize cards and just get out there and play. The more you play, the better you'll get at it, and the more you'll be able to remember what to do. The more you'll understand your deck, and the more you will, just the better you'll get in general. I suggest, if you're new and you're going to be playing, to sit down a little bit and check out your deck, test out your deck. If you've already got a worthy deck, just sit down. If you're still a little bit sketchy on the rules, just sit down and play through it like you're starting out. So you got your deck, you've already shuffled. Say you just mime the guy cutting it. You roll to see who goes first. Heads, it's you, and then you go ahead and get out your 7 cards. I'm sorry, 7 cards. Oh, there's a basic right there. Put him in the active. Or upside down, put him in the active, and then you go get your 6 prize cards, lay them down like that, and then shake hands, and then start. That is the hardest part of this entire game. Remember, you can only play one supporter, and you can only play one stadium per turn. No big deal. Super easy to do, super easy to remember, and that's all there is to it. If y'all like this video, check out the rest of my videos down below. I would love it if you guys would like, comment on this thing. Please, if you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing to me. If you like this kind of content, let me know. Also, I am dabbling around in Dragon Ball Super. If you guys would like to see some of that, see what I'm doing over there, just let me know, and I'll start posting stuff on here too. When I made this channel, it was initially supposed to be about Pokemon and any other card game that I wanted to get into. I've started doing Pokemon, and I realized that everybody that has subscribed to this channel has been about Pokemon, so I don't want to, you know, I want to be putting out content that y'all like, and I want to be able to put out content that y'all like to see. But I also do play some Dragon Ball Super and stuff like that, so if y'all want to see that stuff, let me know, and we'll see you next time.